happy Wednesday, and welcome back to another episode of Real Talk with Emma G and Ra. Mental health sounds like this. My name is Emma G, and this is all in the lead up to my upcoming book, which is coming out in like 3.5 weeks, Ra.
Oh my gosh, it's so close.
So close. I'm so excited. And the fun thing about this is that we're going to continue this podcast past the drop date. So I'm really grateful for just how many beautiful conversations we've had around mental health and well-being in the lead up to this book, because it's, this is what we're all about, yourself as an authenticity coach, and my work as an empowerment through songwriting coach, leading with a purpose and leading with the why of helping people through understanding and being able to look after themselves better is so exciting. And I have to say, Ra, this is like today's interview, I think, is just a testament to the alignment of everything for us, because you didn't know this. I don't even know how you know our next guest, but you were the one who organized today's interview. And it's funny because last year when I went on tour with the Hard Rock Cafe, I was facilitating some fundraising events to, help us, deliver these workshops, these youth empowerment through songwriting workshops to young people across the country. And Meg, our guest for today, was one of the kind souls who donated her coaching practice hours to be auctioned off for this fundraiser. So I'm just sizzling with excitement.
I'm excited. Yeah, I love that. I think I mentioned Meg to you, gosh, I want to say a month ago. And Meg and I both met. We're both currently upskilling in our coaching, which is something that we are, one is important to me, but I know that we're both very heart-centered, integrity-led coaches. And so we're both doing the same coaching certification together, and it's been such a great space. It's called the Midas Coach, and that's how I met Meg. And yeah, I really knew that I wanted to invite her on and to hear more about the work that she does, specifically with highly ambitious businesswomen.
That's awesome.
Because I really love everything that she's about. So I'm excited to have her on today.
Yes, please, ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for the one, the only Meg Trucano. How you doing, babe?
Hello. I'm so excited to be here with you both.
Yes!
Amazing, incredible women. I'm so honored that you are having me. Thank you.
Oh, of course, it's our honor. It's our pleasure. So it's funny because so obviously upskilling is an important thing for. Sorry, I'm just diving right in. I hope you don't mind.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Let's go. I got so excited. So I mean, obviously, you and Ra, similarly to me, I'm upskilling myself as well. Like, have this whole mindset of, growing is important in terms of making sure that you are keeping your own wellness in check as you continue to serve. But can you tell people a little bit more about you? You are a certified psychologist, I believe, and you've got like a truck ton of insights, of passion for mental health and well-being, specifically for women, high performing women. What even does that mean? How, if somebody's high performing, why would they even reach out to someone like you?
Yeah, great question. So to clarify, I have a PhD in developmental psychology, which is, it takes like a lifespan perspective. So I was never certified as a therapist or anything like that, which is very important, as Ra and I are learning in the, in the coaching space. You have to be very clear about that. And I love working with this specific set of women as highly ambitious humans, right? Because I was one. And I found myself, following the hamster wheel of achievement and success until I got to a point in my career where I realized that I was deeply unhappy, but I should, quote unquote, be happy with what I had, right? I had the career, I had, all these external markers of success, and I was miserable, like absolutely miserable. So I shifted to doing something that I knew I loved. I had started a side hustle several years before, and so I just dove right into coaching full time. And yeah, I now my niche is focusing on women who want to make some kind of significant life change. And that is such a crucial kind of personal development and identity centered time in people's lives. Usually it ends up being around midlife that people have this kind of um, almost like second half, right? Like they've gotten where they want to get in their careers and they find themselves wanting more, wanting different. And so that's how I help women transition through that period. It gets really murky and it gets really tough because you, in some ways, you lose your center. You need to remind yourself what actually matters to you. And as you mentioned before in your introduction, clarity, it's huge. And a lot of people, when they're kind of looking down the barrel of big change, they're unclear about where they want to go. They just know where they are right now is not it.
There were so many things in what you said. Like, first off, like highlighting that you were that person. Like you said, like I was. And then you realize that you created this life based on what you think that you should have created. What was that turning point for you? Or, you know, you can decide what part to answer. What is like often the turning point for a lot of the women that you work with? Like, what do you typically see? Like, what's the realization or the revelation that happens where they're like, oh, actually, you know what, this is not it?
That's a really, really good question. So I think for me, and probably for a lot of these women as well that I work with, there comes a point where your discomfort with how you feel is like overshadows the discomfort of change, right? So you are like, oh, this is so uncomfortable. Changing would actually be way easier, right? Or way more straightforward. And I personally, it was a coach. She did it. She had the line that changed my life. And she said, okay, Meg, we've been in this container for 6 months. We've been talking about this for 6 months. I want you to tell me how you're going to feel in 1 year when you are still sitting in that chair and you haven't changed a thing. How are you going to feel? And I was like, oh no. So I, of course, cue breakdown. But that's what did it for me, is I didn't want to feel this way into perpetuity. I wanted to make a change. I didn't know what I really wanted to change. I knew that I needed some kind of a break or a sabbatical or a career change. But as I find with many of my clients, that one little bit of my life, it's a big bit, career, right? What you do with your life. It was kind of like the outer shell of an onion. And then we kind of kept getting into the more nuanced layers. And that happens all the time with my clients. You know, we talk about career change and then they're like, ooh, my relationship, or ooh, where I live, or ooh, this part of my lifestyle is no longer really where I want to be. And so it's really a beautiful process of like unfolding. Have you ever seen those time lapse videos of a dahlia blooming?
Yeah.
Where it like starts very central and then it kind of comes out and then it contracts a little and then it extends out and then it contracts. That's what it feels like watching these women sort of unfold. Is like they have this nugget that makes them on the inside, and that's their passion, and that's their something that a lot of times they've left behind because they feel like it's not valued in the corporate world, or they can't monetize it and make it make a living from it, or make a good living from it, or be successful using it. And so they just kind of ignore it. And after decades of ignoring it, it comes knocking and it's like, hey, remember me? And so it's really fun to watch clients rediscover that part of themselves.
I love that. So you're both feeding their inner child in many ways, but also giving them a space to really dig into and nail their why, and recognizing that their why is more important than their fear. I was listening to a motivational speaker years ago when I was writing my album Born in Crisis, and one of the things that sort of stuck out for me was this whole thing of people are so much more in love with the idea of the devil they know than with the fear of the unknown or the devil of the unknown. That they figure, I'll just hold on to something, even though it's harming me, at least I know what it is. Whereas they don't recognize, the power of leaping into something new and unfamiliar and where the growth can be from that. Sorry, that as you were talking, that just what kept resonating in my mind.
I love that.
There's actually a cognitive function that this is called the loss aversion bias. And basically it means like, to grossly oversimplify, it's like you are way more afraid of losing your $10 than you would be happy finding $10, if that makes sense. So it's like there's this huge emotional reluctance towards loss of like identity, of familiarity. That's a huge one, right?
Yeah.
And then, then you would be to like get your freedom back or be satisfied, right? Because these are all very abstract concepts, and a lot of people can't put themselves in that frame of mind of looking forward, which I think a good coach can do, as Ra and I have learned. I interrupted you, Ra. I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. It's absolutely okay. I love what you said, and I'm going to ask a question based on that. But when you were speaking, I love, Emma, how you thought about that. I was thinking about Shrek.
You
talked about the onion. I was like, I was literally imagining that. And when you're speaking about the layers, I'm like, absolutely, that is something that I also see in the clients that I work with, whereby it's like, okay, when you acknowledge one thing, when you start to be honest with yourself and be truthful with yourself, then you start to realize all those other areas of your life where perhaps you haven't been acknowledging the truth of actually what's there, and where perhaps you've been saying yes when really you want to say no, or where perhaps you're doing these things again because it's going to make your partner happy, or it's going to make your family happy, or it's going to make your boss happy, but really deep down it's like gnawing away at you and it's eating at you. And you, as you mentioned, Meg, it's like, why am I here? Like, what am I doing with my life? But I really love that you spoke about loss aversion, because I know that this is something that, again, a lot of the clients that I work with come up against. Like, they're fearful of losing that identity or relationship, and there's more fear about the loss of that thing instead of, okay, well, what's actually possible for your life, and where do you actually want to go, and where do you want to head? What do you do with your clients to be able to shift them from that state of being loss averse to actually starting to see things from a place of hope and possibility and wonder?
Ooh, that's so juicy. So I actually believe that you need to get a little rebellious before you can fully step into this understanding of hope and of what life could be like after making a change. So I have a framework that I use to help people understand where they are on kind of a continuum of change. And it's an acronym. It stands for rebel, energize, align, and then leap. And the rebel phase is the most fun, but it is also the most crucial, because we have to, when we're making a big change, we have to assess where we are, what about our situation, our identity, how we think, our habits, just all of everything that makes us human, right? What we don't realize is that we get to choose that. And we get to choose whether that comes with us and moves forward into our change, or whether we want to leave it behind. And the rebel phase is all about getting your hands dirty and really saying like, oh, okay, my boss doesn't think I should do this. My partner doesn't think I should do this. My whomever thinks it would be silly to quote unquote waste waste my degree, or I've spent so much time developing this career. Do I really want to start over? I'm using air quotes for those who aren't watching the video. And really the truth is you have to reconcile and wrestle with those, conditioned thoughts, those ways of being, those pieces of your identity that you don't want to have anymore. You don't want to identify with anymore. And so that's why I have actually a new offer. It's called the Real Change Kickstart. And it focuses all on rebellion. And I love it because as soon as clients get in there, they're like, ooh, this is fun. And they get to they get to be like, oh my gosh, I don't have to do that anymore. I absolutely don't have to do that anymore. I love the example one of my clients gave. She's like, oh, I go to daycare drop off in the morning, and I have to get my hair done, and I have to have a shower, and I have to put on my makeup before I do drop off at 7 a.m. I'm like, girl, what time are you getting up to get all this done before? And she's like, well, I was raised in the South, and you absolutely cannot drop off your children if your hair is not done. And I was like, do we want to keep that, or do we want to tell it thank you and move along? Because that's a lot of early days. You could use the sleep in different, you could use more rest. And she's like, oh, I guess I don't have to do that. I'm like, absolutely, you do not have to do that. So these are the kinds of I call them small acts of rebellion, where there's just a little bit of a nah attitude about it. And I think clients have a lot of fun with it.
You're speaking all of my love languages in the last 17 minutes we've been talking. So talking about upskilling, right? I'm currently taking upskilling from my education practice and vocal coaching practice and my empowerment practice into what we call courage coaching through Krav Maga worldwide. And the amount of, so my husband and I run a Krav Maga self-defense school in Bethesda. But the whole, the rebelling thing kind of ties into so much of that, right? I love the idea that self-love is the purest, boldest, bravest act of rebellion that somebody can possibly do. But you said something that kind of gave me goosebumps, to take words out of Ra's mouth, around the whole idea of rebelling against that bad code that we may have, gone through as young people, or through that past relationship and those habits and those mindsets of how can I not step on other people's toes? How can I not, make sure that mum's happy, or make sure that I don't waste my education, whatever it is that we've sort of inherently led ourselves to believe, which then turns back to your other point about that whole thing of shoulding on yourself. Right? We need to stop being shoulding on ourselves. And no, I'm not cussing for YouTube, okay? SHOULDING. The whole thing of just giving yourselves permission to break up with those bad habits. Are there any kind of tactics that you really like to lean into when it comes to breaking up with that past self?
Yeah, so it's an evaluation exercise, and it's in a couple of parts, but basically it all comes down to evaluating your shoulds. So I have clients go through their day, usually for about a week, and every time they think, oh, I should have, but they don't want to do the thing to write it down, and that's a should. And then we dissect it together in a session. We go through and we say, all right, where is this coming from? Does this should have a particular voice? Is it your second grade teacher? Is it your dad? Is it your grandma who is really critical of how you look? And then we start to peel again, get deeper and deeper. And the final part of the exercise is okay, do you want to take this with you into your next iteration? Mm-hmm. Do you want to take parts of it, but change how it shows up for you in your life? So for instance, maybe you still do want to have a shower before you drop off your kids, right? Okay, that's a far cry from, full makeup and getting to, all the things. Or do you just want to leave it behind and say, thank you for what you've done for me so far, but I'm moving on? And so many people have never taken the time to do this exercise in a structured way and really dig down deep into what experiences and what kind of perceptions they have that create this whole story. And they might have been causing themselves such anguish for years, decades even, because they were not willing to face their parents' disapproval, or they were not willing to be uncomfortable and risk another mom at drop off being snarky with them, right? Or whatever it ends up being. But really, it does come down to just assessing what you want to keep of your bits of your identity, call them your shoulds, and what do you want to leave behind. And I think that is a really powerful exercise that anybody listening can do. And I think where sort of coaching expertise and my expertise as a psychologist come in with my clients is that we get really, really, really deep into kind of the structural components of it. What kind of beliefs are upholding this, and what are they related to, and how, and it's kind of like almost like a mind map. If you've ever done those, it just kind of expands into different things. And then you get to find connections, right? You get to drill down and say, okay, the source of this behavior that I'm performing is actually a function of me believing that, me working hard is a virtue and is the best thing that I could do. And that, kind of snowballs from there.
Gosh, I love so much of that. And the tool, it's such a simple tool, right? But as you say, not many people have really sat down and gone through and acknowledge where they are having or making all these decisions that are based on what they think they should do versus actually, well, what do I actually really want to do here? So I really love that. As you were speaking, you mentioned like the uncomfortability of like letting someone down, and a lot of those feelings that come with making a different decision, which is often what I find with my clients. It's a lot of the reason why they haven't made a different decision. Like they don't actually want to feel those feelings of perhaps like having a courageous conversation or doing something whereby their parents might disapprove of them, right? And that being a really very real felt experience for them. How do you support your clients through that? Or like, what do you typically recommend for your clients when they're in that space, like knowing, right? They know, okay, actually, you know what? I don't want to do this anymore, but I also know that I'm going to have to meet these uncomfortable feelings as well.
Tying this back to enhancing our education, I'm using a lot of the tools that you and I now know about, and helping people actually accept their emotions and accept the discomfort of whatever is going on in their lives. And gosh, that's such a powerful tool, because as we know, so few of us actually know how to do this. We might think we know how to do this, but it's tough. And I think I've had maybe 90% of my clients come to me and explicitly say, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to feel and accept my emotions. It's all been about regulation, or, I don't want to feel that way, so I'm just going to do something else and avoid it, right? And we have all these fascinating avoidance mechanisms, right? Ways that we creatively avoid feeling feelings. And Emma, like, I imagine that leaning into your music and your kind of songwriting and singing as a way to process emotions is probably a pretty good way to do it.
That's exactly it. I mean, I tell my clients all the time, you need to sit in the yuck in order to even allow yourself the permission to, get to the yum. Or as my husband says, again, Krav Maga, you can't beat an enemy that you refuse to acknowledge or face. And so being able, and he's obviously talking about external enemies. And for me, it's with my clients, it's about looking at, okay, what are the, first identifying what those yuck feelings even are, because you can't allow yourself to sit in them if you refuse to put a name to them. So again, you're speaking my love language. Please carry on. I love this. I love it.
Yeah. So I think Ra, to answer your question, I think a lot of it is, there's some education in there about like, okay, try this. There's a little exercise that you can do to sit with your emotion for a little while and say hello to it, and then kind of tolerate it. And then you can work on accepting it. But even I find that witnessing, as a coach, witnessing them tolerating discomfort is like such a value to them, because they're like, okay, like I feel really crappy, but someone sees me feeling really crappy and they understand why. And that's huge for a lot of people, because as both of you know, so few people have had the experience of being in connection with another human being that is exclusively for them, that is exclusively in their corner, backing them up, helping them make the decisions that are right for them without any sort of conflict of interest. And so simply witnessing someone be like, hey, you look like maybe you're a little uncomfortable. What can you describe to me what that feels like? It's like they've never had that before. So that's kind of a good baby step, I think, to getting into that more emotion-based work. But yeah, it's tough. It's hard because we've never been taught how to do it.
I'm curious about it. Sorry, Ra.
It's okay.
I'm curious to speak, like, for both of you actually, because Ra, you're from New Zealand, like myself. Meg, you're obviously based here in DC. The emotion-based thing, do you think that's a Western idea of kind of being new to the whole emotional part of coaching? And this is a question for both of you, because I'm like, I feel like when I was getting my teaching certification and coaching certifications in New Zealand, emotion-based learning, emotion-based experiencing was a huge part of it.
That's an excellent question.
I
don't know.
Can you clarify the question? Like, what do you specifically wanting to add?
What Meg is talking about when it comes to allowing like clients, for example, sit in their emotions. What I'm understanding from what you're saying, Meg, is that it's uncomfortable and therefore a relatively new concept to really approach it through that emotional wellness lens, and maybe a new way for how you're looking at the coaching business. But I feel like from what I, how do I want to put this? I feel as if in every educational part of my training that's led me up to the empowerment coaching that I do now, it's been very focused on acknowledging the holistic person, but a lot of it has been around the, emotional trauma, maybe familial emotional, like the background of an emotional person, or the background of I'm not finding the words properly. The background of a human's emotional basis, not just the central part of a human's, and like the current emotional basis of a person. Does that clarify the question at all? You're looking at me like you're not quite understanding me. I apologize.
I think I would say, and Ra, I have absolutely no idea what it's like in New Zealand. But I think the main thread in at least the United States, in the time that I went through school and the people that I typically coach also came through the system, emotions were a problem to be solved, right? If you had a negative emotion, you got to figure out what's causing it so that it can go away or it can turn into something else, right? This idea of just being like, oh, I'm angry right now, like that is what it is. And I'm not going to actively try and get rid of my anger. I'm not going to stuff it somewhere that's not going to see the light of day. And I'm not going to try and transmute it into something else. It's almost like honoring the
to feel it.
sacredness of that emotion as its own thing. But I do not think that people, at least of my generation, know how to do that.
Okay,
Yeah.
that answers my question. Okay.
Yeah, I was going to say absolutely. A lot of people, as you said, 90% of the clients that you work with don't know how to do that. And it's been a very similar experience with the clients that I've worked with in New Zealand. I have clients ask me, well, how do you feel your feelings? And I have clients say to me, how do I get rid of feeling this way? And it's wanting to get rid of the feeling that is often why people want to work with me, not realizing that getting rid of your feelings, I'm also doing air quotes, right? Like also often further perpetuates actually what they're feeling underneath. And there are a lot of modalities out there, which are often used for the avoidance of feeling the emotion versus being able to accept, okay, yeah, like Meg said, I'm feeling angry or I'm feeling sad. Can I just accept it for how it is? And then can I move on from that? So yeah, I'm just further echoing what Meg said, again in a different country, but it's still very similar, really. If you kind of look at, we come from very similar, I say, backgrounds. Like US and New Zealand are similar in lots of ways, but there's also lots of differences as well.
It's fascinating to me. I just, because a lot of the circles that I have been in, people are not as afraid to, like, it's to sit in the feelings as much, but it's about moving through them that they kind of get blocked. Yeah, interesting. There we go. I like it. Different strokes for different folks. And on that note, we do have to wrap up, unfortunately. But can we tie back into your 45-day course that you were talking about, Meg? You've just released it. Can you tell people about how it works, how they can reach out to you, how they get involved with the program, and keep in touch with all the fantastic work you're doing?
You bet. So it's called the Real Change Kickstart, and it's for people who want to get in and kind of get their hands dirty and have a really good runway to making a change. It's 45 days of really intensive psychological based coaching. And we have 3 one-on-one sessions together, and we focus on a different concept each of the sessions. So first we own it. We own where we are. We own our baggage. The next step is you have to unlearn those patterns and that baggage. And then the third session is focused all around defying and deciding what you want to take with you into your next phase, whatever that looks like for you. So I also have Slack as a kind of in-between session support for people. And I find that that's super, super helpful for a lot of clients because things happen between sessions, right? Like that's when a lot of the integration happens and when questions come up. So that's a huge part of it. And then we have a wrap-up session and you get an integration guide and you get to go on your way and make your change. So yeah, I love this program so much because it's feisty and it's real and it's raw and it is so helpful, and it will absolutely help you examine your shoulds and the stories and the narratives that you are allowing to kind of shape your life kind of as they run in the background, kind of just on autopilot. So I really encourage people who just really need like a good dose of motivation and inspiration to get started with something, even if you don't know what that is yet, because I was in that spot too. This is a perfect place for you to start.
I love that. I love that.
And I love how you said fun, like where it's like way long, like ages ago, you said fun. And I think that is such a differentiating factor between how often this work is delivered as well, and the way that you articulate it and the languaging that you bring to it. So yeah, I'm excited for anyone who decides to say yes to jumping in and coaching with you.
Wonderful. Hey, thank you so much, Meg. Really appreciate your time, your insights, your expertise. And of course, anybody who wants to learn more, head to megtrucano.com. And until next week, friends, be good, be kind, spread love like it's going out of fashion, and rebel. Rebel. Go on. Be your badass selves. We'll see you next week.
Thanks, ladies.